Hello everyone, welcome to a new track guide. This is a long awaited one. It's Spa-Francorchamps. So yeah, hopefully you enjoy it. So, first, the setup you need to use. You want to run very low downforce. I have my rear wing on 1 usually in every car or 2. And the suspension needs to be very stiff. This is for aerodynamic reasoning. You gain a lot on the straights. So yeah, let's dive into the first lap. It's as usual the onboard one. I use TC1 coming out of the bus stop in preparation for a hot lap. Otherwise, I use TC2. Here we go, full throttle. Run the car as wide as possible to take as much track as possible. Go very wide here, brake just before the orange to the left. Full throttle on the apex. Then on the exit stay full throttle and go TC0 for a rouge. Stay as close to the pit wall as possible. Cut a lot here. Don't touch the inside curb. Cut radial on the left hand side completely without taking a track limit. Go back to TC2 or TC3. Just before the curb on the left hand side I brake, going into second gear, use all the curb on the right hand side. Here as well, full throttle, a little bit of a lift, full throttle. Use all the exit here. Brake just before the curb on the left hand side. Go with a V shape. Go on the curb, don't touch the green. Could run it a little bit more wide there. Coming into Puhon, I use TC0 or TC1 most of the time. Brake very early and then go full throttle immediately. Back to TC2, brake when the curb starts on the left hand side. Go on the curb, don't go on the grass. Use all the curb on the left hand side, full throttle. Use all the exit. Have a good exit of here, go to TC0 so the car doesn't kick in with the TC. Go back to TC2 for the bus stop. A long straight. When you're at Blanchemont, use all the track. Steer as little as possible. Use all the exit here. Before the blankets on the track you brake, go into first gear. Let the car rotate nicely. Full throttle. Use all of the track to minimize steering input so you'll be faster. And that's a very fast lap around here. Now let's go to the third person cam and let's get into detail. So coming into here, I use all the track on the right hand side as preparation for my hot lap. This is so I can go on power as early as possible and I will have more straight line speed basically. I use TC0 here, so wide up the corner as much as possible. Here's the start finish line. Coming into La Source turn 1, you see at the left hand side you see a orange blanket on the wall. That's where I usually brake. I don't shift into 5th gear because you lose the torque of the car. Try and stay in 4th gear, let the revs go very high and go back to gear 1. You need to brake very late. It's almost as if you overshot the corner, but you want to steer really late so you can be on power as early as possible to gain a lot on sector 1. So here we go, braking, stay wide. I don't turn yet. This is so I don't have the usual U shape. I kind of go straight and then cut it to the right hand side, kind of like a sideways V. So stay wide. At the apex you want to go full throttle already. So you see my inputs, it's full throttle already. You can use TC1 or TC2. I prefer TC2 because on TC1 the car tends to slide a bit more. But that's just personal preference. Full throttle, use all the exit here. Coming into a Rouge, probably the most famous corner of the track, or famous corner in general. Coming into a Rouge, stay as close to the pit wall as possible. You're trying to get as much aerodynamic benefit from hiding behind the wall. Then you go into the left-hander, and steering gets really heavy. There's a lot of pressure on the car because you're going downhill a little bit and then uphill. Use all the track on the left hand side. Then coming into the right hand side, I'll show you. Here you can see I use everything, don't go onto the grass. Now you want to steer a little bit to the right, don't steer too much because you will have oversteer. The trick here is not to get on the curb on the inside. If you do that, the car just slides away or you just lose time. The reason why I use TC0, by the way, is so the TC doesn't kick in when I'm going over Radeon on top here. Don't cut it. This one, Radeon, push it as much as possible, cut it as much as possible. This is also the reason why I use TC0. The TC tends to step in if you go over it and you just lose 1/10 on the straight, which is unnecessary. Cut everything. This was a valid lap. It was a 15.4. Now on the straight, just don't steer. Basically, try to reduce the steering inputs. Coming into here, you want to brake before the curb. You can brake at the curb as well. The trick here is to get as much curb as possible to open up the chicane. So that's what we do. We are completely on the curb. Now we want to cut on the right hand side it as well, completely. So go on the green here, full throttle for a bit and then go back onto the brakes. You want to be with 2 wheels on the inside of the curb. It's faster. And the car doesn't bounce off the curbs. There you go. The white line is the track limit here, so be aware of it. Coming into here, full throttle. Try to open up the corner as much as possible again. Don't go on the curb because the car will slide away. Don't go on the green on the right hand side because the car will slide away as well. You lift a little bit before the corner and then go full throttle and use all the exit curb on the left hand side. Here you can see we touch a little bit of the curb, not the green. We are already nearly on 100% throttle. Full throttle, use all the curb. The track limit is the end of the curb, so if you're on the green with the right hand side of your car, you will get a track invalidation, and that's just that's not very pleasant. Coming into the hairpin, you want to brake when the curb starts. You want to get a V shape out of this corner, not the usual U shape. It's quite weird, but you don't want to go wide on the exit. That's why we use a V shape. It's just faster. You can go back to gear 2 or gear 1. If you go back to gear 1, the car will have a little bit more rotation and you have to short shift into second gear once you go on the power. In this case I use gear 2. I just find it more comfortable. Here you can see it. I'm not on the inside, I'm actually in the middle of the track, and this is the V shape where I was talking about earlier. It's just faster. You can see V shape. This is so we don't run out of track on the left hand side, because you want to be at the right hand side basically for the next corner. You can see there's probably like 2 car length, 2 car width on the left hand side, which is usual. Going into here, don't go on the green because the car will unsettle or you will understeer. Go only on the curb at the outside. For the left-handers, just try and not get onto the green at the inside. Try only get the curb. That is a lot faster. If you go on the green, it feels faster, but you will lose a lot of time on exit. Use all the exit possible here. Make sure to not get a track invalidation. The track limit is the green, the light green stripe next to the curb. If you go on that, you don't get a track limit. If you go beyond that, you will get one. Reduce the steering on the exit of the corner, so you'll be faster. Nearly going over the grass. Stay to the most to the right hand as possible. Now, coming into here is a pull-on. Try and be on the curb as much as possible. I go from 5th gear to 3rd gear. This is so I get a lot more engine brake and a lot more rotation. You can also go to 4th gear if you want. I brake just before the curb on the left hand side. There are tire marks on the ground, that's why I usually brake. You kind of want to tap the curb on the inside, make sure that the car doesn't unsettle. The trick here is to brake earlier than you expect and go immediately full throttle once you are at the apex. So you can see full throttle here once I hit the curb basically on the inside. Stay full throttle through here. Stay close. You can run the car wide, but you would just lose time because you have a lot more distance to travel. Here we brake just before the curb at the left hand side. I go from 5th to 3rd. You can also use 3rd if you want, depending on the car. I use Mclaren because it was the fastest car last week. Braking, stay wide. Don't go on the grass on the inside or on the green. Try only to be on the curb at the inside. Try to kind of sneeze on it. The car will have a little bit more rotation, which is quite useful for the left-hander. You want to stay on the right-hand side because you have the left-hander, and this is the more important corner. So we kind of lift, brake. Here you want to use everything on the inside. And again at the apex, full throttle. You can see we are now at the apex, and any moment I go full throttle. This is just the fastest. You can run out very wide, also, but be aware there is a track limit there and there is gravel on the outside if you go too wide. The track limit is the curb. You can reduce your steering here, but you want to go to the left hand side as soon as possible for the next corner. Coming into here, you want to brake when the curb basically starts. I go from 4th to 2nd gear. You can also stay in 3rd gear here, but I prefer from 4th to 2nd. There will be a little bit of rear locking, which gives the car a lot more rotation. This corner is really important because this will make or break your lap. It's a really long straight after this. It's only full throttle after this until the bus stop, so make sure you get this corner right. You want to go on the outside. You don't want to be on the green on the inside here. You only want to tap the curb on the inside and use the exit as much as possible. That's exactly what we do. Full throttle at the apex. I go to TC0 here because the car will slide a little bit through the next corner. You need to control that slide, otherwise you'll lose time, of course. But using TC2 or TC1, the traction control will kick in and you will lose 1 or 2 tenths on the straight. Stay as wide as possible. Don't go on the curb on the inside. Use the curb on the outside with your left hand side of the car. Don't go too wide. This is all full throttle. I go back to TC2 for blanchiment. Again, go as wide as possible. You can take a lot more. You need to be on the green with the right hand side of your car. That's also where the track limit is. If you go with the right hand side on the road on the right hand side, you will get a track invalidation, and that sucks because this is not a corner where you should be getting a invalidation, because it's not a very hard or technical corner. Tap the curb on the inside. I would suggest staying on the white line if you don't feel confident tapping it. On exit, go as wide as possible. You can use a lot more than this. You can even go on the green. Stay at the right hand side, so reduce the distance to the bus stop. That's exactly what we're gonna do. Take the curb. Where I brake is at 130 meter. You can see the braking markers on the left hand side. So you see 100 and we just passed the 150. You can also look at the tire marks on the ground. You can see that it's light gray and dark gray, and I brake about 10 meters before the dark gray begins. I go back to first gear. I go as wide as possible. You can take a lot more. You can go with your wheels on the white line, the right hand side of the car on the white line, left hand side on the green. I don't do it because it tends to oversteer a lot. For the bus stop you can use ABS 1 as well. You will get a little bit of rear locking into the corner, so the car rotates a little bit more nice, some people say. You can also use TC1 on the exit for obvious reasons, also to get more rotation. Go off it. Don't go over the curb on the inside, the very big curb, the sausage. Try and use as much curb as possible. Stay on the right hand side of the track, maybe go into the middle. Here in the middle, going into this left hander. Wait for going on throttle, the car will rotate, you will slide a little bit. Go full throttle at the apex again, the car will slide very easily. Coming into here, you want to use as much exit as possible, as much exit curb as possible. You can use a lot more than this. I would say you can go 30-40 centimeters more to the right hand side, but it doesn't really matter. Now it's just a sprint to the start finish straight to get that lap time. So we sacrifice our exit for the lap time. In the race, of course, don't sacrifice the exit. Coming across the line, that's basically a lap of Spa-Francorchamps. Thank you for watching. I hope this track guide helped you with your questions, answered your questions. If there's still any question, just leave a comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and see you next week in the next track guide.